I speak to you today for the first time as a YouTuber. A tremendous battle is raging on the internet and on YouTube against the algorithm. I have invincible confidence in my videos and the work that I do. Side by side, my subscriber count and viewing numbers have advanced to save not only you, but mankind against the foulest and most soul-destroying tyranny of boredom. Whatever the cost and agony may be, subscribe you must, as subscribe you shall.
In 2018, I put a poll online asking which film to watch, Darkest Hour or Coco. Darkest Hour won the day and I gave it a glowing quick review shortly afterwards. Today I go more in depth, but I want to preface something first. I will not be going into depth over Winston Churchill as a person. After all, this is the Film Review Open Challenge and not a historical essay. With that in mind, let's see if Darkest Hour is something I can still recommend. Here's my review of Darkest Hour. May 1940, in a heated session of Parliament, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain is under pressure to resign due to how he's dealing with the impending German invasion. The opposition government is even willing to form a coalition as long as Chamberlain resigns. That evening, Chamberlain announces his resignation to the rest of his party, but Viscount Halifax, everyone's choice to take over, refuses to take on the role. The only other choice, Winston Churchill. Churchill gets word of this the next morning and later that day is invited to meet King George VI to become the new Prime Minister. Winston's first speech to Parliament promises victory at all costs with no mention of peace talks. It's met with silence. Chamberlain and Halifax start to plot to remove Winston from power, stating that if he on record states he will not enter into peace talks with Hitler, then they will resign, causing a vote of no confidence. Hearing news of Germany's invasion of France, Winston travels to meet the French president, who surprises Winston by stating there is no plan for a counterattack. Winston addresses the public on the radio and misleads them on how well Britain is doing in the war, much to the chagrin of Halifax and King George. In reality, 300,000 soldiers are trapped on Dunkirk beach, and the German army is advancing. Winston suggests that the barracks at Calais with 4,000 troops could draw fire away from the army whilst they evacuate them. This plan is met with a lot of backlash, as the 4,000 will essentially be sacrificed. Halifax tries to get Winston to state that he will not enter into peace talks. Churchill doesn't give this answer at this point, and instead he tries and fails to get America to help by providing planes or naval ships before coming up with an idea called Operation Dynamo, a mission where civilian boats are sent to Dunkirk to retrieve the stranded soldiers. Churchill states on record he will not enter into peace talks, so Halifax gives him 24 hours to change his mind, and Winston very reluctantly says to find out what the Germans want at least. In one of their weekly meetings, King George states that whatever happens, he will support Winston, and using this resolve, Churchill heads to Parliament on the tube, something he's never done before. He speaks to the public about what they think of the war and potential German invasion, with the public very much stating to fight to the end. The ministers in the outer cabinet agree too. When Churchill addresses his war cabinet to state they will not enter into peace talks no matter what, Halifax tries to resign with Chamberlain, but Chamberlain says he wants to wait until Winston's address to Parliament. Churchill gives an impassioned speech which is met with rapturous cheering and applause from all but Halifax. Those who've seen this film will note that I have missed a lot of nuance with the plot. I wanted to go through that here and what I thought of them. The biggest thing I've missed in the plot summary is Miss Layton, the audience stand-in character who becomes Winston's secretary at the beginning of the film. Miss Layton is given a list of instructions on how to deal with Winston, but doesn't do very well in her first dictation and is yelled at shortly afterwards. As the film goes on, Winston warms up to her, at one point even breaking the rules to bring her into the Matt's room to explain exactly what's happened after she tells him about her brother at Dunkirk. As a plot device, this is really well done because it humanises Winston and gives the audience information without being overt. I was pleasantly surprised to find out that Elizabeth Layton was Churchill's secretary in real life, albeit a year after the film takes place and with no brother at Dunkirk. She passed away in October 2007, aged 90 years old. Winston's wife Clementine, on the other hand, I'm in two minds about. She grounds Winston when he goes over the top and acts as his rock, although in one scene which comes out of nowhere, she states that they are broke and don't have enough money to pay the bills. This is then not brought up, and seems to only set up for Winston to display some of his famous charm. Kristen Scott Thomas plays Clementine Churchill, and she does quite well with what she's given. Chamberlain is revealed to have cancer, but despite the pressure he was under at the beginning to resign, his approval is what will make or break Churchill as Prime Minister. In Winston's first speech, Chamberlain doesn't give the signal of waving his handkerchief to have the party support him, but then at the end he does. It's really good bookending, and again, using creative license to make a more interesting film, because this too is fictional. The more you dig and pick at the realism of this film, the worse it gets too. The famous "we will fight them on the beaches" speech was given after the Dunkirk evacuations, after the film was set, and most disappointingly, the scene on the underground, a key proponent in Winston's resolve, is fictional. With this in mind, you have to watch the film as a portrayal of Winston Churchill which isn't entirely accurate. To compare to a previous film I've reviewed on the channel, it's similar to something like The Abduction Club, but not as bad as that one. When you really analyse it though, the film is fairly thin, focusing on the lead role and making it the centrepiece with everything around it almost an afterthought. But damn if that lead role isn't portrayed brilliantly. Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill may be one of the best leading acting roles I have ever seen. He transforms and picks up on the idiosyncrasies, his brutish nature and old English charm in such a way that he takes all of the focus away from any flaws there may be. Winston Churchill is shown to be a flawed protagonist under immense pressure, but there are glimmers of his dry wit that come through, suggesting that he economises by only smoking 4 cigars a day, getting the V sign the wrong way round, or my favourite, stop interrupting me when I'm interrupting you. Gary Oldman brings this character to life under incredible makeup and costume, and it's no wonder The Darkest Hour won 2 Oscars for Best Actor and Best Makeup and Hairstyling. It was also nominated for Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Cinematography, and Best Picture. Funnily enough, Dunkirk was also nominated for Best Picture that year, a film about Operation Dynamo, and a film that's on my list. I wonder when that'll get picked. I wanted to mention the direction and cinematography briefly. There's quite a few aerial shots and tracking shots that's used. In a film like this, you may not have the ability to use dynamic camera techniques, so when appropriate, you should to break things up. Flying over France and seeing how the war is affecting the people, 2 driving scenes through London, and more than one shot where the camera zooms from the ground to the sky. I don't think any of it's excessive, though any more it might have been. I'm also a big fan of how they showed Winston writing the first speech as he's delivering it. Darkest Hour is one of those films that should be watched and enjoyed without picking it apart. It's a film that when it comes under scrutiny starts to crumble, but I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy this watch through again. Gary Oldman's portrayal of Britain's wartime Prime Minister is the reason you watch this film. It is a masterclass on a leading role taking centre stage and really becoming the character. The rest of the film may not hold up by itself, but it's worth a watch purely to see the best portrayal of Winston Churchill, even if it's not the best portrayal of Britain's darkest hour.
Thank you for making it this far. If you like what you see, please feel free to give this video a like and share it around. Maybe leave a comment below about what you thought of this video. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel so you can get notified when I upload new videos. If you'd like to support me in other ways, you can buy merchandise at bradleyj.tmail.com, where you can buy t-shirts and tote bags. Or you can become a patron at www.patreon.com/BradleyJVoices for just £1 a month.
Coming up next for the Film Review Open Challenge is Pretty Woman. For now though, thank you very much for watching.